Hello, anybody, somebody, nobody, whoever never see this. This is Siegfried Alexander Faust, the Whiff. Come back and do some more Warhammer 40k. I thought I would make a relatively quick video if possible, trying to explain ranges and why some people um, underestimate high movement and ranges, and other people overestimate it. It is great and also meh. So I tried to make a video explain a bit of that. So some of the different boards, depending on what mission you get, is going to be like this. And this is for, of course, Strike Force, not Incursion, where the board is much smaller. Where most of these are going to be 24 inches apart from side to side. Some of them will have instances where it will be a bit closer. We get one like that right here, where you can see this is definitely between the two shortest points. Oh, that would probably help if I So it's about 13 inches, 12 to 13 inches. So it's much faster. So not including this, most of them are going to be for missions you'll roll up to 24 inches. But we'll take this into account too. So let's say you had, first of all, 12 inches. Well, a lot of the slower infantry-based models in the game have 5 to 6 inches of movement. And then a lot of the bigger stuff has around 6 to 12. So if you say, let me just spawn in a Demon Prince real quick. If a Demon Prince, well, actually, I don't even think I need to. It's 12 inches for the wings, I think. Is it? I'm pretty sure the wing is gives you fly and a movement 12. Oh, actually, you don't even have a Demon Prince here. It'd be in Thousand Suns. Anyway, that would just get you into combat. You have a guaranteed charge. A guaranteed charge is when there's nothing stopping you, preventing you from getting a charge, and it's within 2 inches to get within an engagement zone, so a 3-inch charge. So if a 3-inch charge, you roll double ones, you make it because then you're within the 1-inch engagement range zone. So you have to be at least 15 inches away to not have a guaranteed charge. With that said, there's 24 inches. I wish I had like little measurement tokens to make this a bit easier, or I had a Tony Stark like little layering blueprint I could use to make this even more easy for people to understand. All of this is unnecessary. This is just clutter that distracts you from the pure mathematical measurements. So, let's say you have this guy over here. It's the start of the game. He's tanky. He's a Deathwing Knight. He has trans. He has a storm shield. He's a tanky boy. Now, he's going to be as close as he can because he's tanky. Now, your opponent will, if they're smart, still depending on what they're going to fight, aka you, make use of light cover or obscuring, more so obscuring if possible, because no damage is better than less damage. But let's put him there. And now he has a 9-inch aura of stay away from me. That is no deep strikes, etc. Now, there's aspects where some armies can punish for 12 inches or deny up to 12, but for a large amount of the game, it's 9 inches. So you can have him there, and then we'll have just for simplicity's sake, one over here. I was gonna put him in the corner, and then let's just have one dude over here. So we kind of see where everything is. Now, if you had a pre-game move, like the Necrons had a pre-game move, you just start on the objective, and you don't even need to move. So if you have an army that, say, has heavies, and you have a pre-game move, this will counteract that heavy penalty you're going to take for moving, which is an entire like 13%-ish value you're going to get out of your damage output if you can get enemies in range, which is great. And so you're not going to have to worry about that next turn. And then you may have to move it again after that, but you can just fully prep yourself before the game even starts, and you don't have to worry about movement for the rest of the game, which is fantastic. Now let's say I go first. If I go first before my opponent, and I am, let's say, Craft World Eldar or Yanari, I have Drop Pod, or Chaos Space Marines, regular Space Marines, I have Drop Pods. This is right here. So this would be about 9 inches, not over 9 inches away, but I can't put my guys within 3 inches over there. So I might as well have them be about here or about there. So if we pretend this woods is in here, this is a relatively balanced-ish map because these are obscuring, so it's a little, and this is dense, so it actually is very painful and punishing for shooting ranges, but it is still pretty welcoming for the diagonals as well. With that said, so if I do this, what is this going to do? Is it going to let me have some Space Marine boys, some Devastators, and it's going to let them be here. Because they're here, they're going to get their extra if they use Melta, not Laz, specifically. All of their heavy guns don't really matter. Melta, if I'm half range, I'll get extra damage. But let's say I'm not using Melta, because there's a lot of other heavy weapons in the game that just don't get love. Well, then there's no fucking point. If I'm in range, like, the only thing this is really doing, the range is irrelevant, is being able to see them and not take a penalty. If I can see them from, say, here, then there's no reason to be over here. It would give me a terrain bonus, dense versus light cover, etc. But if I can see them and not take a penalty, then I have no reason to be close. Melta can get me extra damage, but if it's a one wound model and I'm shooting, it dies no matter what, as long as I shoot it and the damage goes through. Or if I'm here, then it's 3 damage because it's a base 2 plus d6. That's the only way you would get a benefit out of this, because you get the guaranteed kill. You're risking not getting the guaranteed kill with Melta if you're further away. But some weapons, it doesn't matter. So then there's no reason to have a drop pod. Furthermore, your opponent may have stuff that is also range or close range, and they want to be able to get back at you. You could stay obscuring and then move out, and then depending on the range of your weapon, guess what? Multi-Meltas, they're 24. That's the range of this. So as long as you just move up a little bit, which is 5 inches, 5 to 6 inches, I don't care what the ladies say, 5 inches is enough. I had to go there, I'm sorry. You're going to be able to shoot with all your multi-Meltas. And then if they haven't gone yet, then guess what? They still have to move up. Now, that's the multi-Meltas and the heavies and this. Now, let's say my opponent goes first. Let's say he moves his 5, or let's say it's something that can move 6. And maybe he wants to shoot, maybe he doesn't want to shoot. If he doesn't want to shoot, then he could probably advance. Which, let's give him, for these dudes, let's give him 3 more. So that'd be about an average roll. That's out of a d6, that's a 4 up. It could be 1 less and it'd still be average. So versus 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a couple extra inches. But what does that do, really? That's the difference of me putting my guy here to now I basically have to go here. Which, these are slow-moving models. These are Necrons that's like 5 inches or so. So if I advance even with Necrons, for just round 1, the very first round of the game, this entire drop pod is now meaningless almost. Because, put this dude here, that's where he would have just gone anyway. So, this is just wasted points at that point. It's just preventing my stuff from being shot, which still has utility usage. But is that counteracted by having more firepower instead from keeping them alive, etc.? And it prevents me from deep striking other models depending on how much reserve/reinforcements you want for your army. Now, furthermore, even though this is 24 inches, it may not matter depending on what you're shooting or fighting against. Let's say if this was a big... will be nice. Yeah, there we go. Let's say there's just a giant wall here or something, depending on what terrain you're facing, right? Now, some stuff in the game is go fast. It's bikes or flyers. Now, unlike Skyweavers, because they just go insanely quick, is wings. Any kind of flying unit, basically for the most part, has about 12. Bikes have 14. If they have advance and charge, then they're going to be moving 14, and then plus a d6, which a lot of bikes have turbo boost, which means it's just going to be a flat 6. So it's going to be 20 inches, and they can still charge afterwards. Which means if they had a straight line, they'd go about here. Which means they almost have a guaranteed charge. They have a high percentage value getting a charge. And if they even don't get it, guess what? Command reroll. Now let's say it's not a bike, it's a flyer. Because Vanguard Vets, Jetpacks, Assault Marines, that's not uncommon at all. Raptors, Warp Talon, not Talons. Was that what they're called? Shame on me. Or just, Demon Prince even. Just people with 12 inches. Now, let's move 12 inches. Where does that put me? Here. Now, if I was about me and this dude head on, then actually I'm about here. So give or take, what that is 3.6, which means that's a nigh almost guaranteed charge. And that's if he advanced. If he didn't advance, 7.6, so I need a 7. That's a little above average. But if I deep strike, that would have been 9. So this is actually still easier than if I deep strike just with flyers. Flyers can realistically, depending if you don't even advance and you move slow, a flyer and normal movement, and I'm not counting the Blood Angel bonus for charging, have a reasonable chance to still get into close quarter combat charging you round 1. Which means if I have a bunch of Sanguinary Guard, this is what you might have to deal with round 1 after you just simply moved. And that's where your opponent deployed. Now, if you go get, say, Skyweavers or some relative, what is it, Drukhari that can go fast and advance and charge, what you're going to have to deal with is this. 16 inches. Okay. And I'm not going perfectly straight. And then they can advance, and they get a guaranteed 6. And now they have to, and now they can still charge because they can actually advance and charge. So they have to make a 2-inch charge. They can't fail. And again, Skyweavers, which if you go Yanari or Harlequins, or if you really want to still do Traveling Troop, so you can do, for some armies, they can easily get in, which is why if you deploy at the front, it's an issue. So you can make the argument, well, I'll just deploy further back. Okay, but then if you're deploying further back, if we're going to play this what-if game where I'll do this, I'll do that, okay, motherfucker, this is what's going to happen. Then you're going to be further back and whatnot, which means you're not going to be in range to do shooting, which gives your opponent a better chance to make use of terrain. Not the one I spawned in. But better use of terrain, getting to their objectives guaranteed. And if you're playing against Space Marines, they can stay in Devastator if they want all day, or Tactical Doctrine. So they have more board control now for Space Marines. And so a lot of the game right now, it's better to play further back or make use of obscuring, because you can likely get into combat within 1 to 2 rounds, close quarters. So a lot of the game is kind of just going into some weird ways. I played against a match in I played a match against a buddy of mine, and he didn't make use of obscuring because he trusted the tankiness of his vehicle. A lot of vehicles just aren't up to snuff right now. Melta has always been a big thing for the last couple years. And then las cannons, in a way, are making a comeback. Any kind of big las cannon, there's a big difference. Because it's strength 9. Strength 9 versus all these T8s. And hell, there's actually even more T9s right now, because of a lot of vehicles being turned into T9s. With that said, Meltas will only wound on a 5-up. So it's becoming more and more viable to have these 24 to 48 inch big hard-hitting guns. So a lot of the armies want to go fast. One of the reasons people are like cooming over Ravenwing is because Ravenwing are bikers, but they can't advance and charge, but they get their 14 inches, and then they get another 3 inches of movement. And then they can advance, and a lot of stuff is Turbos, which is 6 inches. So they can advance almost their entire army up to about 1 inch from your deployment zone. Round 1. Shooting you, clogging you up, being a menace. However, most of their army doesn't have the firepower of Melta, especially close range Melta, or they get penalized by getting -1, which is still, good, because they'll be hitting on 5s, but, it's still Melta, it's still going to be messing stuff up. But hitting on 4s, but they may not be getting necessarily the hit and wound rerolls, maybe, but then you're going to be risking a lot as well. It's very spooky, but this is also one of the reasons that Skyweavers and some advanced charge, fast move things have been a menace. However, you could always do this in Ravenwing. Nothing has changed. You could keep the high movement, but something a lot of people aren't talking about that I'm still frustrated. I don't know why my nerd rage won't let this go. You don't need to keep Devastator. People are like, oh, you could just stay in Devastator Doctrine. Then why? You're over here. Your entire army is over here for the most part. Or the people over here is because they need to stay over here. And again, I understand there's different missions. Don't try to make a side argument for any neckbeards over here. most of the extra movement in the game doesn't matter. 12, especially if you have 12 fly, regardless of infantry or not, even though infantry is the best version of it, is very good. It's the core thing of what you need because of how it will force your opponent to deploy safely further behind, thus giving you more control defensively to set up for round 2, being closer to get that charge, or if they don't and they go closer to you, for your ability to probably punish them and probably get some charges in, unless the dice gods really don't like you that day. And even then, you could still be more defensive and you have a lot of control. So, unless you're literally playing my Death Watch army, which is the exception, in my opinion, for this, I think you just don't need drop pods in general. I have 2 other drop pod armies, which is Yanari and Craftworld, because they have a Falcon with a Fire Dragon squad. I think that's reasonable enough. And flyers are mostly dead right now too. I think the only army I have that has flyers is Iron Hands, just to get the 2 Fire Raptor gunships. A lot of stuff right now is either you be really tough or you go fast. And because Armor of Contempt was removed, it brought up a more important, I don't know, not necessity, but, you know, an inherent value increase for having Storm Shields again, any kind of shield, because you lost the Armor of Contempt bonus by having them. So a lot of people just phase those models out. So the game became tough again. So now it's tough versus fast for a lot of armies. And regardless of what to say, if there's something I dislike or don't agree with, play however you want, have fun, enjoy yourself, love the game, build the hobby. But I just was hoping this video would give a bit more explanation on how even if you have something that's only 5 inches, if you have enough, if you have long 24-inch shooting, it's enough. If you are playing something that's like Nurgle Demons, Deathwing Dark Angels, or any kind of slow-moving, hard-hitting melee, or that's kind of how it's built, or Corn Demons, you just advance as fast as you can, take whatever losses, use as many defenses bonuses as possible. I would argue right now about using more light cover, because there's more and more options to ignore light cover, or sorry, obscuring, what am I saying, instead of light cover, and then being where you need to be between round 1 2, maybe even giving up in the current meta objectives for round 1 if it puts you in a more favorable long-term position over the course of the game, because of the snowball effect of diminished losses and on how you're going to be doing less and less good as the game goes on, especially if you go second. If you go second, it's not talked about, there's an inherent value of giving up objectives on the first round, because you're going to score at the end of the second, at the end of the game for going second. So there is a bonus there that people don't talk about for playing extra defensive, which is nice. You make your opponent siege, which will force your opponent to extend a bit themselves, which if you're playing a fast army, that gives you something to play with. If not, then, you know, at least you didn't get Shrek'd round 1 and you have some more ideas. And you still don't have to play that, but it gives you options, which is very nice. I see a lot of people not making use of obscuring. They underestimate their damage, their opponent's damage output, or they just run head first into stuff and die, and, you know, it's a big issue. Obstacle, I understand the obstacle rules are very janky and can be annoying along with dense at times. Terrain is always very annoying. I still struggle with it. Sometimes I have to constantly look stuff up just to dummy check myself and play correctly. But I think that's the big gist of what I wanted to go over. This is already going longer than I want it to be. I just wanted to go over movement and how 12 inches is kind of the golden ratio, especially if you can fly, and hiding and making best use of that first initial 5 to 6 for setup position, and thinking ahead in the game of how you want to, where you want to be and how you want to play, because it makes a big difference if you have 2 armies. Then there's a skill difference of tactics on what people do, and then the dice gods, where Nuffle will throw your dice. And so movement phase, in my opinion, when it comes to 2 people of similar skill, or where you're trying to go uphill, is very crucial. It's the more crucial phase where you will get punished or rewarded for having good movement. With that said, if you like my content, please like, share, and subscribe. Put your thoughts down below. Spread the word so I can try and grow my channel. I'm a small timer. Nobody really knows about me. And I hope to add some value to the hobby. With that said, take care and game on, gamers. Bye.